This bitter the voice has broken the bills they'll be morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving morning. Then you had your pocket full, in our bills they'll be morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I don't want you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I don't want you conniving morning. Oh, Joseph.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. I'm David Hines. I want to welcome you down wherever you are, whether you are home in Guyana or you're further afield in the wider Caribbean, in North America, in Europe, wherever you are, and you are tuning into this program, please share the link and let everyone know that Politics 101 is on this evening. Of course, we continue our series on analysis of the budget 22, which was presented last week in a marathon 5-hour speech by the Minister of, well, we are assuming that he's the Minister of Finance. We don't know what is going on, all kinds of things. But Ashley Singh presented the budget on behalf of the government last week in that long 5-hour speech. You know, that kind of thing really is very boring. We ought to dispense with this budget speech. The minister ought to just come, spend about half an hour, 1 hour the most, give an overview of the budget, the main areas, and lay there and leave time for adequate debate. Those 5 hours were wasted, most of them, because no doubt people might have fallen asleep or tuned out. You know, if he spent an hour, he would have left 4 hours and more for debate by the members of the House of Assembly. But, you know, we have adopted the Westminster system, and we have made very little effort to change that system. And Britain, which gave us that system, Britain has moved on. You know, when I was a boy going to school, we used to be so mad at V.S. Naipaul, you know, in his description of the Caribbean as the third world of the third world. I still believe he was wrong. I still be mad at Naipaul for, in one sweeping statement, denigrating the Caribbean to what he called mimic men. Those of you who are familiar with Naipaul's writing. But part of what Naipaul was trying to say, I think is correct. In my old age, I doubt if you told me this 30, 40 years ago that I might have seen some element of truth in what Naipaul said, certainly at the level of the mimic men. I think he was spot on. But here we are in 2022, dealing with the budget. And this week, the debate kicked off. And so far, we have had some very inspiring contributions from the opposition benches. Not too much of all that thing we saw last year. I think the opposition certainly has lifted its game. And when you listen to the presentations from the government side, defending the indefensible and you know, the bad behavior, you know, that they carry on with there. And I'm glad to see the opposition is not paying much attention to their bad behavior. So here we are on a Thursday evening. This evening, we are going to get the perspective of the AFC, the Alliance for Change, on the budget, what's in there, what's their take on it. We've heard from the PNC yesterday or last evening. We heard from the Guyana Trade Union Congress, and it's the AFC we're going to be hearing from this evening. So please share the link and let everyone know that we are here. I want to welcome the leader of the Alliance for Change, Brother Kemraj Ramjatan, and my namesake, the point man in a lot of the economic issues, David Patterson. Gentlemen, I don't know, I don't see them there. I don't know what is happening. Good night and good evening to all of you who are joining us. We are excited to be joined. I'm hearing you, David, but I'm not seeing you on the screen. Thank you very much. I hope my operator is on the ball this evening. We've had some technical difficulties in the last couple of days. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Dave, we're glad to be on the program, still in the hustings.
That's right. Always a pleasure to have you guys on. David, I'm going to start with you because you have been the point man for the coalition on a lot of these issues that are related to the budget. We have been saying here on this program that regardless of what you think about the parliament, regardless of what you think about politics in Guyana, regardless of how alienated you may be, a budget, the budget, is perhaps the most important intervention as far as parliament is concerned. And do you agree with that, David?
100%, David. You mean a budget encompasses everything, what we're going to do for the year, how we're going to spend, what development plans, what plans we have for the health sector, education sector, all the sectors, I mean, youth, sport, housing, whatever it is, I mean, and everything that we do, all the policies that have been discussed are driven, are put together in the budget, and that's supposed to propel the country, give us an idea how we're going to propel. And when I say propel, I mean not only for any one sector, for the entire country. So therefore, everyone looks forward to the budget. I mean, the rich, the poor, the middle class, everyone looks forward to so they can plan this year what they're going to do, not only for the year, for long-term planning. A budget is supposed to give you a whole vision. And if I'm to first make an assessment of budget 2022, before camera gets in, it's a lack of vision. In the sense that you mean that the PPP has now gotten their hands on the NRF funds, I mean $604 million US, I do think that they've been taken out. And as typical, and this is what economists have been warning the country about all the years. That when you have a lot of money, a lot of extra money from oil, don't go making what you say, the word is luxury projects and prestige projects and those things like that. You invest in infrastructure correctly, but you don't go spending money on vanity projects, is the word it is. And then, of course, you must have a plan. So therefore, if you're going to build a road here from A to Z, you must know why you're building it, who you're going to serve, what are the benefactors of the road, how the community is going to grow and develop. And what we have seen with the budget, I mean, I'll go into that detail. What we see with budget 2022 is that a group of guys got their hands on a lot of money and things that they were dreaming of, you know, I mean, things that have been seen on YouTube and those things like that. It's like, have the money, let's build it. There's no linkages to anything we did before, not only what the coalition did, but no linkage to what the people did before. But just throwing money because they have it. And obviously, when you throw money without a plan, it's going to be wasted and it's not going to rebound to the benefit of our citizens.
And that's David Patterson there, Kemraj. David, is what we call a professor student. He anticipated my question, which was, how would you generally describe the budget in your opening statement? And he said, lack of vision. And I know you were a good law student when you were in law school. So how would you describe the budget if one were to ask you for a general description of budget?
Well, as I've stated in my speech, it is a budget that has a deficit of planning for the future. It has a tremendously large percentage on what I call adhocracy, transfer payments, and also, again, on adhocracy in relation to mega projects, which have not been in any way designed for purposes of being endurable. It is the same thing that happened with the Skeldon factory. No studies, no surveys, nothing. You just say, well, we're going to put $200 million into a factory because sugar is the future. And it turned out to be a black hole. And almost on every item of substance, because you do have the current expenditures, you got to pay teachers' salary, you got to pay nurses' salary, you got to pay the administrators, parliamentarians, this, that, ministers, and so on. Those are the regulars. But a large portion of this budget, over $127 billion, or even more than that, sorry, about 100, whatever I can't recall the figure, but a huge set is now going for capital expenditure. And that capital expenditure, I don't see big planning behind it. Just like the gas to shore, so many other things that, of course, David is going to speak on too. And that is where I find when you have, at a stage like now, $607 million into the consolidated fund from the National Resource Fund, you're not telling the nation how you intend to spend. And although the act says that you have to tell us the projects that you're going to put all this money into, we are not seeing that. It is stealthily done, hidden in all kinds of quarters. And because money is fungible, I am certain that they're going to spend it all over the place, and we can't get to scrutinize it. Neither can the people out there, the actual public, cannot see how it is being spent transparently. So a deficit of planning and transparency in the spendings is how I would, in a one-liner, describe it.
Lack of vision, deficit of forthrightness, planning, and of course, transparency. David, I'm not going to let you get away by calling people names. You you accuse the government of not having a vision, the budget not reflecting a vision. Why is vision important?
Look, listen to me. We as a country, Guyana, has been tremendously blessed since 2015. And so there's always a perception and a rumor that there is oil and hydrocarbons somewhere around in the Guyana basin. They've hit the mother lode. Exxon and their operators have hit the mother lode. I mean, obviously, people debate about the contract, but irrespective of the contract is good or bad, we have in our natural resources fund $600 million, which the truth is, David, we have done nothing as Guyanese to get this money. I mean, when we get money from gold, I mean, our people go into the gold fields, they have to spend their money, oil, fuel, ration, those things like transportation, and then they get oil. Same with sugar, same with agriculture. This wealth resources, all we do is sit down and administrate, and the money comes to us. And because of that, and it will happen, and it probably will increase every year for the next 30 to 40 years. And because of that, you have to think prudently what it is. You have to think, listen to me, that there are 800,000, 850,000 Guyanese in this country. How can this money, which belongs to each and every Guyanese, not only here, but abroad, how can this make their lives better? Building a hotel, unfortunately, because of course they announced in the budget they're building 12 or 14 hotels we built this year, 22,000 rooms. How does that make the ordinary man in Belladrum, in Ithaca, in Buxton, how does that make his life better? How does it, what burdens does it take off all this money off of somebody, ordinary, a single mother with 4 kids who's working as a security guard? That is the vision that I'm speaking about. You must have an idea where you would like to see this country in 1, 2, 5, 10, and at the end of 40 years when the oil is no longer there. So when I say lack of vision, the single mother in Bar Settlement, in Berbice, in Linden, wherever it is, can't see anything in this budget for her. Their handouts, of course, there's the usual thing, but they do. That same single mother, they're giving them $25,000 because we care grant. But in return, what they do, she goes to collect the grant, leaves her children, says, mom's going home to collect something. When she arrives there, the ministers take her up, do a Photoshop, push a mic in her hand, in her face, and say, oh, tell me how much this means to you. And of course, she would say something complimentary, because rarely anybody says anything when they're on camera and those things like that. But the next day, and that's really good, because the next day she goes and pays off her bills, because she's been trusting from the village shop, working credit. We do it, David. You take credit, and then when you get paid, you pay back, and you start the vicious cycle over the next week. So she'll take that money, and she go and pays off the credit that the months that she got. Next week, back to square one. What we want in a budget is a plan where that lady can have, that single mother with the 4 children, wherever she is, she can have a sustainable income. She doesn't have to depend on the state. She can take a time out now to sit with her kids and educate them and teach them values, with morals. We've lost that, because everyone is in a hustle in this country. So getting up and boasting that we're billing this and we're billing that, we're doing all these things, that doesn't help the single mother, doesn't help the taxi driver, doesn't help the ordinary folks, that are fighting, they're living day to day. Dave, you know what we're talking about. I don't know, some of your viewers may, outside of Guyana, may not realize the daily hustle that happens in Guyana. If you don't get up and hustle, but that's it. You go home, if that mother doesn't get an hustle, just 4 hungry kids looking at her. So we are thinking that there should be things such as reduction in taxes, if she has to pay taxes, reduction in measures to make food more affordable. Transportation, public transportation, everybody has to take public transportation. Absolutely nothing in the budget with all the money to do measures like public transportation for the working poor. I'm talking about free transportation, that there are subsidized transportation. They're all, no matter what you do, everyone has to get up, hustle, and jump in a minibus. All like everybody. The prices of those minibuses don't go down. Don't go down. Everyone wants to have a home. Right? Nobody wants to live with their in-laws all their life. A newly married young couple don't want to go and live with their mother and in-laws, but they don't have a choice. The government said they're giving away house lots, but yes, they give you the house lot, but you can't afford to do nothing, because you take all your last savings and you pay for it. 300, 400, a million, 1.2, you pay for the land, and you can't actually build on it. So when we talk about vision, we would like to see a pathway where that mother, where that young student coming out to university can get life better. And finally, when we talk about our youths, because apparently there was 60% of our population below the age of 35. By now, with all this money, education, and particularly tertiary education, should be free, should be subsidized, so that our people can train, equip themselves to better access and utilize the funds that we have, this windfall that we have. But all they do, they're spending 200 or almost $300 billion on a Mile Falls. You know what I mean? Come on, that I mean, and they're claiming it would make electricity cheaper, but we can't even afford. Even if we make it cheaper, we can't even afford to live. We stealing electricity, but because our light bill this month is $15,000. Carry it down to 7,000, 7,500. Even if you half it, even if you take all the money in it, you carry on 7,500, but you're still only carrying on 20,000. So therefore, even if you half the light bills in these mega projects that they're claiming, we still can't live. And of course, as we've been saying, and Camrad really elaborate, the budget is just purely catered for the private sector, the rich. I said on our budget speech today, there's a Santa Claus budget for the rich and Scrooge for the working poor.
Santa Claus budget for the rich and Scrooge for the working poor. David Patterson and Kemraj Ramjatan weighing in from a FC perspective tonight on the budget. Both the gentlemen are at the Parliament buildings, makeshift Parliament buildings at the Arthur Chung Center, and they're coming to us from that arena. They stepped out of the chambers to speak with us about the budget. Kemraj, what, from an AFC perspective, and your own perspective, what were you looking for in the budget that's not in the budget? Talk to us.
I was looking for, first of all, being the biggest budget ever, and with $127 billion from oil monies, for something that is going to help the ordinary working class and public servants on the median and below the median level. And it had to do with a minimum wage. We had increased it to 55,000 some time ago, and
it's 70,000.
70,000, but within the public sector, private sector, sorry, it was 55. That there must be some element of increase there to the extent that you're going to make, because they're saying they're collecting plenty taxes, they're now got oil monies, and they have performed magnificently since they've taken back government. Well, if you have done that with $127 billion of monies that are owned now by all Guyanese, you would expect that that salary should have been increased, and also social benefits to accrue that are not going to be minuscule, like for the old age pensioners, just at $3,000 and so on more. It is a shameless act when you now, for the very first time, having all of this money. And rather than take it and put it there, they gone into certain pie-in-the-sky schemes and mega projects, which, as I've said, have not. The other thing that I had wanted to see, because it is important in the ecological times that we live. Guyana is 6 feet under sea level. Guyana has had floods that has devastated lives and livelihoods, that they're going to plan better in relation to agriculture, that the infrastructural works at so many of the rivers and Abari Mica, Maikoni scheme, what is blocking these outfalls and all of that, they are going to get major equipment to ensure that another flood come May, June, you are not going to get all these rice fields and cane lands drowned out, in a sense. But you don't see that. The agriculture last year was given, I think, $28 billion. This year, in all, inclusive of regional agriculture, was only $34 billion. I had expected at least you would get more, especially for the agriculture, the infrastructural works in these riverine areas that could be flooded out so easily. Because you want to avoid giving transfer payments of $250,000 and all the big monies that rice farmers got, if you could buy the equipment to ensure that they are not flooded out. And that is forward thinking, you know? And then so many other people who didn't get any flood relief and so on. You can avoid all of that by spending the same set of monies because I spoke to people like Noel Holder, who knows agriculture very well. And he was saying that at least you could take $1 billion to buy what you call these things that dredge the shallowness of the river mouths and so on. And they did not put in for that at all. They said that they have a $5 billion put aside for some resilience, but they have not itemized what, if it's going to go to NDIA and things like that. And that is bad budgeting, because that is not transparent. They could use that $5 billion for a whole host of things that is not, stated in and itemized in the budget as it ought to be. So it is those two things: a better wage and salary for the middle income and the lower than middle income, and also benefits to the poorer people and pensioners that could take care of the inflation, and the fact of a more planned infrastructure that is going to take into consideration the fact that we are going to have huge floods and May, June rains and December rains and so on. And they did not. And that is, the things that I really would have wanted to see in this budget.
David, if you, before you right. Here, I'm not going to speak to what's in the budget. I'm saying here's what's not in the budget. NIS. By law, every working citizen of Guyana has to pay NIS. There's absolutely, and then of course we know that NIS was something started in the 60s, I think. Lovely scheme. I think it's done under Forbes Burner. However, under the PPP 23 years, it had a lot of, it's an insurance scheme. It's like a pension fund. And it had a lot of cash in it. Used under the PNC, even in the days of austerity measures and those things like that, they used to invest the money safely. The PPP came in the 23 years and realized that there's an institution that has billions of dollars, and what they did, they took the money out of NIS and invested in CLICO. They lost that. They invested in the Berbice Bridge. They're still waiting to recoup. They did all sorts of pie in the sky investment, high risk investment. You don't take people money and do high risk investment. And to the extent now NIS is almost broke. You would have thought that if you're taking out $600 million out of our natural resource fund, one of the first things that you're morally obligated to do, because you raided NIS, you're morally obligated to do, is to put back in money into that institution, because it affects all of us, you know what I mean? And I give you an example. This pair of glasses that you have there, even though you pay NIS, you can only get back from NIS $15,000 every 3 years. A pair of spectacles, you know what I mean? I tell you, a pair of spectacles is if you get the most basic one, you can get it just the frame alone, but no glasses. You can't update your prescription, which they ask you to do every year and those things like that. Dentures for old people, you can only get that once every 3 years, and it's not even costs of money. So things that impact the people, you would have expected, fix those first. We can do all of their things you do, but fix and support the little minor things that affect the people first. They're building, and the Minister of Health is just there, they're building a brand new pediatric hospital, and they said they're building 5 or 6 more specialty hospitals. I heard them boasting, saying that, we will be the envy of the Caribbean. No mention whatsoever, David, who's going to staff these hospitals. Our frontline workers are under tremendous pressure with this pandemic. No special assistance for them. But they're building hospitals, mega hospitals that they're saying about spending billions of our dollars, yet they have no mention of any special training, any fast track, any for these hospitals. Worse yet, they closed down the nursing school in Linden. If you could recall, they closed down the nursing school in Linden. And why they closed down the nursing school in Linden, Region 10? Because they said too many persons from Linden were going and attending. Imagine that, and this is not a typical politics. Too many Lindeners were joining it, and they wanted more more diversified nursing cadre. So you stop lending us, you close the school down, stop lending us, but on the other end, you're going to build more hospitals and those things like that. Don't put in any new nursing schools, no, and those things like that. So what we will end up doing is some big fancy white telephones, like the Marriott. You know, I mean, they said, "Oh God, Marriott will end the most transformative project." It hasn't, other than for the Marriott, it hasn't contributed anything to the ordinary mom and pop. Marriott probably has about 30 or 40 or even a bit more employees, right? But of course, they can go to Marriott. The PPP can go to Marriott every single day and be feted by their friends and and family, and take pictures, post it on Facebook, and say to people, "This is development." And those are little minor things, you know, I mean, that are not that are not there. Private lessons. You want your child to succeed, you have to end up in private lessons. Why? Because the public school is not adequately staffed, funded. The teachers are not compensated enough to stay in the school and teach your students. They augment their salaries with private lessons. So they teach half in school and have to go to private lessons. So the ordinary poor person can't afford that. They could barely afford to keep their children in school. So those are the things that are not in the budget. The human capital, the moving out people from point A to point B. But what's in the budget, you would see big mega projects. You know what I mean? Cameron's made a point. No new agriculture initiatives and developments and those things like that. And not housing them for the rich and the poor, you know. Housing developments to support the oil and gas sector. They don't need support. The oil and gas sector don't need support in those things. The poor people in this country need support. That is what I think is not in the budget, David.
Comrade Ramsden, I opened the ITOR News this morning. There's a big headline. Guyana on path of resource curse. Ramsden says budget 2022 destroying non-oil sectors and warns against creeping return of corruption. Comrades, you're a serious man. I can attest to that. When it comes to things, you take it very seriously, and you are not one of those persons who is given to making outlandish statements on the headline. But when you said that we're on the path to resource court, I perk up, because I know you did not say that. That conclusion did not come easily. Explain to us what you mean.
Well, the resource curse largely is an abandonment of what you had as an economy and the basis for it and the pillars on which it rests, like agriculture, fishing, timber production, gold production, and then making a reliance exclusively on oil resources. And as a result of that, you will then have farmers now shifting away, people who would go in to do logging shifting away. And that's the curse, because you have, and what we saw on the economic performance of the last year, and I rather suspect they will want to say that it was because of COVID and flooding and all of that, is that the non-oil sector declined massively. And there is no, on this budget, the training that is necessary to expand agriculture, in my opinion. And the one place that they want to expand agriculture is sugar, which is largely a black hole. And it is because of the resource curse. Again, as an ancillary point I wish to make, they want to take the oil monies to put inside of an agricultural program called sugar that is going to be very unprofitable. $6 more billion. And that is the curse we will have, because it has a political element in it. The base of the PPP comes from the sugar areas. and they want to pay back or buy votes within those areas. So they're going to try as best as possible to say that we did bad with sugar by right sizing and so on. So this resource course is going to do a lot of harm to our country. We are going to have, like in Venezuela, the people start not even wanting to plant any crops and a whole set of things. And then when the oil monies come down or when the oil is exhausted, look what has happened to Venezuela now. Biggest
Yes.
And so that is what I am seeing when they're not going to do the necessary things. At least this budget does not state it at all. And the lack of vision and the deficit and so on therein, I made that statement. I also made the statement because of what I see in relation to their taxation. When they reduce these taxes, the 2%, especially on contractors, that is a reduction of people who can afford taxes. This government seems not to understand that taxation is one of the first duty of citizenship. And who must pay the taxes? Is the richer folk. They must pay the taxes. And what they did here is to cut that 2% taxes from these fellas, and then they gone and cut the excise taxes for these big 4x4s and so on, which could only be purchased by rich people. And that is why lots of people are saying this is a rich man's budget. Now, when you start, because of the money that oil got, you start taking away taxation money from rich people, again, that is a resource curse. Because you're banking now exclusively on oil to do your thing, and you're not going towards taxation, which also helps to bring discipline to manufacturing and businessmen, because they know they got to compete with people overseas and so on. You knock off the taxes from them, you knock off construction taxes, you knock off a whole set of other taxes, and especially for the big people, what are you going to be left with? You're going to ask, and these businessmen are going to come and ask for what is called benefits, just like how the flood relief people were entitled. They themselves going to come back and start asking, as they are now asking for the taxes to be cut and reduced and so on. So it is important. What you need is a taxation reform. That is also a deficit here. And that was done by our administration. And Christopher Ram and all these people have indicated that this is what needs to be done. A reform that is going to bring in more taxes from the proper places. And, so that the poor people in the country can get some money, not necessarily as handouts, but for training to become young entrepreneurs, training to produce something in agriculture, training to go and do something in the hinterland regions for purposes whether it's coal mining or forestry and things like that. And this is where I am saying that if you bank exclusively on this money of oil, it is going to bring that resource curse and the discipline of it all to make better producers other than oil. We are going to have tremendous deficits in the future.
David Patterson, I see a headline here, government gives Exxon license to flare at will. David Patterson says, as he cites reversal of zero flaring mandate instituted by the APNU AFC. Let me read a quotation here because I think it's very important. With this reversal, the PPP now gives Exxon the license to flare any amount if they pay a fee of $45 per ton of carbon dioxide flared. The PPP's declaration that the fine is $45 per ton of carbon dioxide is equivalent and emitted is an improvement, is nothing but a laughable sham, giving Exxon the license to flare. Money talks, the environment suffers. David, explain and defend.
No, yes, namesake. Here, our laws. I started off by my thing. Our laws in Guyana and the permit that Exxon has is very explicit. Flaring, you mean the gas that they flare, of course, it has about 250 toxins. It's a gas that goes up in the air that causes climate change, and then, of course, gets in the clouds, comes down as acid rain. And worldwide, there is a movement to stop flaring. Exxon, who's the biggest petroleum company in the world, in other countries, have to abide by these laws. That's in the United States, Britain, and other developed countries. And our laws say that there is zero flaring other than a pilot light. You know, in the old days, you were like when you have a gas, so got a little pilot light. Otherwise, you have to, because zero flaring, no exception, whatever. Exxon built a multi-billion, with our money, a multi-billion floating production of and it started producing oil in 2019, December 2019. And for 2 years, it has not worked. There's still issues with it. It means a design flaw. And instead of our government saying to Exxon, well, listen to me, hear what you have to do because you're damaging our environment. I mean, Guyana is still a pristine, beautiful country. You're damaging our environment. Stop, reduce your production until a level whereby you can control it so that, and then get the problem fixed. What this government has done, and of course, when the coalition was there, that's what we did. We said, to get this problem fixed, you in no other parts of the world can you go burn your rubbish and your garbage and pollute our skies and get away with it. When they came in, here's what it is. Exxon probably went to them and said they have a problem. Whatever they negotiate, they got rid of Vince Adams, who was the CEO of EPA, who's fighting them to stop. As soon as they got in, they requested Jack Deodam, got rid of him. And then they said to the government, here, don't worry about what we're doing. Don't worry about the pollution that we're doing. Don't worry about the damage we're doing to your environment. Here's what we'll do. For every day we burn, we pay you $45 US. So the government has come about and they're going about saying it to the ordinary folks. Oh, don't worry. They're flaring, but they paid us $45 US every day for it. It probably works out to about like $10,000 US a day, but they're flaring and damaging our polluting. Can't do it any other way. I mean, in any other country, just one day's flare would cost Exxon about millions and millions of dollars because they're breaking the law. We now just giving them a free range to do what they want. And then, of course, when you ask them, they say, oh, well, they're paying a fine, which is tuppence. It is destroying our thing. Exxon knows better. Exxon are a worldwide thing. They have committed, Exxon has committed to reduce flaring worldwide by 50% in another 2 years. But in Guyana, we're allowing them to flare and do whatever they want, disregard our environment. And our government is saying, oh, because they're paying a fine, it's okay. But here's another issue with Exxon and the government in what they're doing. And it has directly onto what Cameron's talking about, the resource core. These SPSOs, one of these ships now, there's about like 30 of these big, large tanker ships out there. And every 10 days, another tanker comes and takes 1 million gallons of
barrels
petroleum out there. They have about 100, 200 persons on it. These people use ablution facilities. You know what I mean? They go to the washroom, they wash their clothes, they wash the sinks and those things like that. In other countries, they can't just dispose of that wastewater directly into the ocean. But in Guyana, and we had that in place, we said, oh, listen to me, because what they have to do is treat that, get rid of the pollutants, you know what I mean, store the pollutants in a separate container, bring that and dispose of that on shore. We in Guyana, we have given them the permission, but here, and this is nothing to do with AP and others. These are fisher folks that have been fishing all the years. That's their livelihood. They're complaining that they're going out and they're spending longer and longer times out at sea, and they're having reduced fishing. The government as initially they denied that this is happening. But when faced with the barrage of complaints from all over the country, not only one area, because of course, the water, when you dump this wastewater, it travels with the tide along the entire coastal section again. They initially said that is not true. Then they've agreed. They've said, the fisher folks has asked them to do a baseline study. Exxon was supposed to have done this anywhere they go. Before you even start doing anything, do a study how many fishes are in this particular area, what type of fish. They haven't done an assessment, even of our fishermen here, of what you actually used to make. So it will end up being another scam, because the ones close to the PPP, if it does work, whatever happens, or if they start to give out grants, they soon start to give out grants to the fishermen. The ones close to the PPP, just like the flood relief money and the COVID money, will get. The ones that they perceive source course will come and say, you allow a company to do whatever it wants just because you want the money from them. You don't do anything to mitigate against that in the long term. And obviously that will kill off the fishing industry, because a lot of the fishermen, the big fish companies, they're now renting their wharf, because of course, if I have a big wharf that I used to take in 10 fishing boats a day, and Exxon comes along and says, listen to me, I buy it for $10 million US, you take it. You don't worry about what happens to your the crew and their family, or the person that used to clean the fish and those things like that. You're the big owner. Take the $10 million, you're going to live in Florida, or you're going to buy something for you and your wife. That is happening. E.C. Vera in Houston sold out his place, single largest land sale ever, in 17 or 18 million US dollars. Stop fishing. And he was one of the fishermen. He was one of the fish processors that bought from, he didn't own boats. He just bought from anybody. So therefore all the fishing folks would come and sell it. It sold out. Because of course, and I don't blame him. You can't blame him. It's economic. But these are the things that will start happening slowly and slowly and slowly, because they are clueless. They have not a plan. No plan.
A plan. Kemrat, I know you want to jump in. You born and grow in a fishing area, so you would have a sense of the impact of this on. And that's not an opposition stronghold. These are people who would have voted for the most part for the PPP.
Oh yes, all the fisher folk that we have spoken to, and I even know some of the big trawler operators. Of course, they spoke to me about that license being granted that was illegally granted by Zulfikar at the very first year of his administration. And what they're all saying is that something has happened to that ocean out there, that they don't know what it is all about, but all their fish production has gone by less than 50%. So if they used to catch, 100 fishes, just about 50 now. And they have to spend longer hours and days before they can do that. It has caused that effect when production declines of the cost of fish.
Yes.
And the nutrition quantities that our ordinary coastal landers would eat now, they cannot eat. I mean, Gilbert has gone up so high now. Or even Bangameri and all of those. And when you have a nation that doesn't have its protein intake, you could see then the nuclear impact, literally, of that which has happened as a result of the non-production or reduced production of fish. And when they're asking for explanations, literally some of these ministerial people are telling them that there's no scientific evidence to prove that. And that they're hard put now to understand what the government is doing for them. And that is what I'm talking about planning. Everything now will be affected because of this oil. And they're going to say, well, okay, well, we're going to give Ali some iron cage and we're going to give Ali some relief, because the fishermen are asking, like the rice farmers, for flood relief, for fishing relief.
Yes.
Trawler owners are saying in that baseline study, you're going to see, and this is how much losses we have made. And we understand in countries like in America itself, off the coast of Texas, their fishermen brought a case against the oil rig owners outside of, and they got big compensation because there is a nexus between oil production and the reduction of fish. Exxon is doing nothing even to in that regard to our fisher folk. And so that is, again, a huge impact that will be negative to our citizenry. We are going to be poorer and unhealthier as a result, because, you know, they might want to talk that you got to say inland farm, fish farming, and so on. But a lot of our people don't know about inland farm. We haven't prepared them for that.
That's right.
How to get a feed, how specifications for fish farms and all of that. Nothing is there. And so, you know, the impact is going to tell in another 2-3 years' time, when even your children can't have the protein intake that they would normally have. You go the coast behind where the mangroves are, like in quarantine area there, and you're going to catch your mullet, you catch your fish and so on. They sea fish them, and you bring them and you sell at the coca head and so. No, production is so small. And then, of course, the impacts that I said. So we are in for some bad times, and all the prices have gone up. That is inflationary there. People can't get the monies. Fishermen now saying that they can't work the amount of monies that they can mind wife and picnic with. So you could see the dire effects right down the line. It has a ripple effect, and it goes along like that. So we want to have all of these things studied, and that is the whole point of it. When we say we want a gas to shore, and we want a study to be done as to how it will affect all these
Our
things.
lives.
Yes, how it will affect an environmental impact assessment and an environmental social impact assessment. They don't want to do that. Oh, go and build a thing. It will bring, and the pie in the sky argument. You know what the gas, the shore energy project will bring? It will bring cheaper gas. How do we know that without an environmental or a social impact or a financial impact? You know? And we have been saying for a while now that a lot of these, the entire world is going on a non-fossil fuel culture. Lots of people like Tesla now, motor cars and this electric and this and that and so on. Renewables. And so we could have a gas to shore arrangement that in another 20 years becomes a stranded asset, because by that time renewables are so cheap.
Yes.
You have to have they studied that? They have not. And this is where we are saying that this lack of planning, this lack of futuristic thinking as to what will happen there and so on. So we can spend billions of dollars on a gas to shore. And then after 10 years, we see that renewables out from China and all these other countries that are producing solar and wind energy far cheaper, it makes the thing a stranded asset. What happens? We lose again, just like we did with the Skeldon sugar factory. It is a wastage.
David, I know. Go ahead, David. I know you spend a lot of time on that gas to shore thing, and I would love to get your perspective on it. And what if you have to go?
No. I thought we had a time limit.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. So right. I brought a motion that was last week Monday on it.
Right.
And it was simple. The motion was, listen to me. We're not saying stop the project, but we say stop doing anything on it for 6 months. Get these studies done. Get independent persons. Bring it back to Parliament, the Parliament Natural Resource Committee. they can sit down and assess it. They can call in experts. They can get advice, prepare a report with all exactly what the issues that Cameron is speaking about. You consider alternatives, renewable energy, the environment, costs, and those things like that. I mean, what alternatives you can use instead of doing bringing gas to shore. Maybe you could containerize it. The whole caboodle, right? We have enough money to pay for that right away. You can fast track it and then bring it to Parliament. Let everyone have a say. 6 months time, and then let the Parliament debate and give us a stamp because we have a holistic view. Of course, they use their majority to defeat it. Kamraj, I noticed that that Schumann abstained and there because obviously, I think the indigenous people are very concerned about what's happening to our environment, but they refuse. Here is what they've released to the nation. Here is what they released to the nation to justify the gas ashore. This gas ashore concept came around. I was a minister. I was the person who first said, let us do a feasibility study to see if this is not a feasibility study on the gas ashore project. I did a study to see, is it feasible that we can get gas out of Exxon into excess gas because of the associated gas? Because at the time Exxon was saying that they needed all the gas to be pumped back into the reservoir so they can get the full volume of oil. So we did that. And we started, and then of course they said, well, okay, you can get this amount of oil, gas, and that's where it was left. We would have done probably like 20% or 25% of what is needed to justify the project. The other 75% were the government supposed to have done things like location, things like we were talking about financing. They have agreed to, and I want people to hear this, to move this project forward. They have agreed to buy our own gas from Exxon. Exxon is bringing up this gas anyway. The gas comes up with the oil. It's called associated gas. If we don't do anything with it, Exxon has to process it and re-inject it because you can't flare. But of course they can flare now. Exxon, we have agreed, the PP have agreed to buy our own gas back from Exxon. Plus, Exxon is charging us $900 million to build a pipeline all the way for 100 from the ship to shore. They have not even gone out to ask anybody to do a test or do an assessment to see if the money that Exxon is telling you is the right money, or if there could be alternative designs to make it better. And here's another issue which the public may not know. This pipeline is coming from Lisa 1, which is the very first SPO that started pumping in 2019. Exxon has since Lisa 1 found about 20 other discoveries. Here's the kicker, and they want to build it in Wales. They never ever came to us to sell anything but Wales. The only thing when you ask them that we closed down Wales estate. That's why they built it in Wales. But here is the kicker. Exxon has found more gas in Berbice and the southeast part. 10 times the volume, 10 or 20 times the volume of this of what you're gonna get from this one Lisa 1. So one would have thought that if you're really thinking about gas, you would have built something in Berbice or wherever it is, closer to where the gas is, where the larger volume is. But no. Jagdeo got up and his boys got up and said, we're going to Wales, and that's it. And all the rest of the member ministers and the sycophants, the private sector and their good friends, all of them are mouthing it. No one has asked them, why Wales? Why not go and let's build it in Berbice? Why put money into Gaisuko when we could go into Berbice and build this gas ashore? If it's a project, and then of course all the benefits that they're telling you you're gonna get, why not give it to Berbicians? But no, it's not about benefiting the people. It is about enriching themselves. You should see the land grab that's going on there. You should see the companies, when you check into the companies that will be doing the project, that will be having the spin-offs and those things like that. When you peel off the veneer, you'll see the boys, the same boys that you have seen all the while. And here is an issue outside of gas assurance that David, I'm surprised that it was the first thing that you asked me about when you talk about Exxon and gas in Guyana. Last week, workers who worked in the kitchen, we're talking about the semi-skilled and skilled and semi-skilled workers. These are the people that work in the kitchen, the laundry, the deckhands, the maids on these SPSOs. Complained, came down and went to one of the national newspapers and said, listen to me, they are feeding us Guyanese, they're carrying us, transporting us to the SPSOs owned by and they're feeding us leftovers. You hear that, Dave? They're feeding them leftovers. Yes. And we asked, what do you mean by leftovers? They said, oh, well, when the white people and the SB, the employees eating, we can't go in the cafeteria. When they are finished, we go and get whatever is left. The Ministry of Labor and the company, and it's no secret, SBM, and they're a European company. Mm-hmm. The Ministry of Labor called in the recruitment company, the company that recruits these skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled workers to work these menial jobs, you know what I mean? And they reported that this is the company SBM's protocol, that their staff must eat first, and the surface staff, the service staff, which are the workers and so forth, have to eat after them. Well, I made a statement, David, and you should know well. Apartheid ended in 1990, released Nelson Mandela. 94, he was elected, dismantled apartheid. Nelson, and this is, we just finished Black History Month. Martin Luther King walked to dismantle the Jim Crow laws in the South. Here we are in Guyana. Companies are coming into Guyana, pumping Guyanese oil and treating our citizens as second-class citizens in Guyana. Here's the pickup. Here, segregation, eating places, that went out with apartheid, you know what I mean, that who eats where. So what we would expect as a normal place, you have different hours. You could say that the engineers, just like you do in a cafeteria with a lot of persons, you say to you're eating time between 11 and 12, and everybody, as opposed to the white people and the SBN employees and those things eating first, and then the service staff will come. But here is a kicker though, David, and I want you to listen to this. The Ministry of Labor, as I said, called in this company and then issued a press release saying that they were pleased with the discussions. They were pleased that the company came in and acknowledged that they had defaults and so. But they didn't say to the Guyanese public what they're going to do about that. They didn't say to the Guyanese public that it's illegal. Segregating how people are is illegal. I don't know what protocols you have. Those protocols may work in some part, I don't know where, Timbuktu. But in Guyana, each and every Guyanese have the same rights. And that's what's happening. And of course, this is only the first SPSO. It's anticipated we have 4 by 2025. And if we don't put a stop to these things right now, you can imagine we have a set of second-class people, you know, I mean, as you see in certain Middle Eastern countries, whereby, you know, I mean, you have the sheiks and those things like that, and then you have the workers living in community. We're heading there. But the PVP, they're not putting their foot down because money rules. They want to handle the money at the expense of the Guyanese citizens.
And of course, they have to repay those forces that helped them with regime change last year. We give you car guards on commission.
Oh, money, in a corrupum. In a bill tell me morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving morning. Then you had your pocket full. In a bill tell me morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I don't want you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Oh, Joseph, poor me. Oh, Joseph, poor Guyanese. We are poor for the government that we have. We are poor for the policies that they enable. We are poor for the enablers. Morning, neighbor. Are you welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time? I'm your host, KAMSTV. It is Monday, yes, the 7th day of February in the year 2022. Imagine in 2022, you can still have apartheid-like conditions for your citizens. Foreigners can come to your country and make your citizens second class. Well, it was done in South Africa, and it took decades to undo it. And here we are in this modern era, 2022, allowing foreigners to come to our country and relegate our citizens to second and third class. And so if we sit back and we continue to allow this disrespect to our citizens, bet ensure it will only get worse. It will only get worse. But Guyanese seem to be contented with the ill treatment so long as they get the scraps off the table. So long as you get the scraps off the table, massa, you are contented, you're happy. I'm working with ExxonMobil. I get more money than you in the public service. I get more money than teachers and police and soldiers because I'm working with ExxonMobil. But are you able to maintain your dignity? Is your citizenship respected? Are we prepared to accept or trade, as a matter of fact, our rights as citizens of this country for scraps off of the white man's table? Scraps off of the table of the political elites. Scraps off of the table of the criminally corrupt executive and others of ExxonMobil and this nasty, stinking, dirty government, PPP. Are you prepared to accept that? When you trade your citizenship, your entitlement to equal rights, equality of opportunity for scraps? Don't tell me no, because that is what we're seeing. That is what we're learning. That is what we are understanding is happening in this country. And those who are supposed to represent the interest of the people, like Polari Joe and the Bishop, sitting at the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Works, are not defenders of the people, but they're defenders of their scraps. Never mind their scraps are bigger or coarser than yours. The fact is they too are getting scraps off of the white man's table. They too are getting scraps off of the table of ExxonMobil. It is a burning shame, an indictment against this corrupt criminal mafia cabal. When you understand some of the things that they are doing in the name of governance against the people of this country, giving away our resources. But on top of that, allowing the takers, the stealers, the coveters of our resources to pollute our atmosphere for next to nothing. That is the thing with the, you try to move away from it. You try not to talk about it from an ethnic standpoint. But there's always a saying that Indo-Indians believe that a slow cent is better than a fast dollar. And so $45 per ton of pollution is better than no money for clean air. That is how they reason it. If we can get $45 a ton, and on average we will get 10,000 US per day, it is 70,000 US per week, 2,800 US per month. Think about what that can do for us. Not even what it can do for our country, what it can do for us. That's how the cabal thinks. How much of that they will get to siphon off? How much they will get to line their pockets with? All they see is money. They don't see the long-term effect, the long-term impact on the health and well-being of the citizens of this country. Have they studied pollution? Don't they know about acid rain? Don't they know that the pollutants can be so thick in the air that their citizens will suffer from respiratory diseases? But that doesn't concern them. What concerns them is how much they can get as a pay-down to line their pockets. The responsibility is a government, representative of government, politicians, to take the best interests of the state, the citizens, into consideration. But we know that's not the politics we play here. And so the citizens have to also recognize and respect their responsibility, and that is to keep government in line. But instead of standing up and keeping government in line, the citizens are allowing themselves to be kept in line by government. It's an indictment on all of us who say we are leaders, community leaders, and we're activists and we're citizens. An indictment on every single one of us. Every single one of us. You might take lightly the discussions we have here on a daily basis. But when you start to see those things unfolding, then you will all only have to say, you know, so-and-so person had discussed this on KAMSTV, and I really didn't pay attention to it. But look at happening now. Too late. Too late shall be the cry. Too late shall be the cry. When you start to have acid rain and your soils can't produce, you will die of starvation. Because those who are accumulating the wealth in this country will be the ones who will be able to get food by imports. And then they will take advantage of you and your children and your children's children if you want to eat. It might sound far-fetched, but many times when I talk to you about issues in this program, I talk to you from a standing lamp and look from a night. The fact that you've seen it, recognize it for what it is, and a stitch in time saves 9. You know what I'm saying? A stitch in time saves 9. But are we stitching? Are we willing to stitch? Is there enough of us who are willing to stitch? I just saw some magic here. And that magic has to do with something I'm going to talk to you about later in the program. How much stitching are we prepared to do? Or how many of us are prepared to stitch? How many of us are prepared to stand up to this illegitimate cabal and say it ends now? Get it right or get out. How many of us? When I bring certain kinds of information to you, you always tell me, be safe. Mr. Amsterdam, be careful. Watch your back. We're praying for you. Why don't all of us band ourselves together? Go out. Why don't all of us band ourselves together? And deal with this issue conjointly. Deal with this issue as a collective. And so all of us would have to be more vigilant. All of us would have to pray for each other's safety. All of us will be involved since all of us are consumed. Why don't we? Persons have been asking me to address an issue which I really don't want to touch because it's going to come across as nasty. But even here in social media, even here we have divisions of purpose. Even in our communities, we have divisions of purpose among the activists. Because some believe that activism is about self-aggrandizement